other countries. We are against them putting out the narrative that when we show up with wooden shields, they like to say bats. That's untrue. We show up with these things and umbrellas and air things because they are using noxious chemicals. I personally know women that last year during these things have had miscarriages, are having problems with their menstrual cycles because of these gases. We as protesters are peacefully there. If you watched even CNN last night, the lady, I don't remember her name, but she was telling the true story of how we were asking any of those, the occasional water bottle that was thrown by who knows, they're not there to peacefully protest, and we do not associate with them. In fact, when we find them, they are escorted peacefully out. They are not a part of us. When people make actions while we're protesting and take advantage of the police, who would rather abuse the protesters than set up stations near local grocery stores, pharmacies, and healthcare facilities, they would rather come and line up in their building, which we were not even close to. The first night, we did not even cross the street until they came out, turned off the lights, turned on spotlights. We called and made sure they turned the lights back on because this is a safety measure. And those are psychological tactics. They try to intimidate. They try to incite. Oftentimes the media is not there for the 6 hours previous when we are spreading love, when we have food there, when we have community there, when we are there to do exactly what we are supposed to do, and that's put the pressure on the government to do the right thing. We have not been seeing them do it. We are out there to make sure that they do. Excuse my mask. Last night was absolutely absurd. They were kettled. And if you don't know what that means, it is illegal. When do these police officers have they become above the law instead of managing the law? That's their job. When they start breaking the law around us, what does that speak to us? They're not our masters. They are citizens like us. We would like them to treat us like they would like to be treated. That's all. Black, white, brown, indigenous, Latinx, however you identify, gender, sexually, doesn't matter. Treat us the same. We're there to make sure you do. That's it. We wish we were not there. But one reason why we are there, and you'll see plenty of shirts today, is because, how long ago was it now? August 31st, 2019, Brooklyn Center had one of the most heinous acts of police intimidation and not doing their job. You have Chief Arredondo on the stand talking about how Derek Chauvin's disobedience of policy caused the death of a man. I can cite specifically, in my case, Travis Jordan, that the immediate disobedience of policy concerning a wellness check is what caused his death. So how is that any different? How are we going to blame the disobedience of policy on the death of one man and not so many others? The policies are there to protect the police. The policies are there to protect the citizens that the police are supposed to be protecting. And that is what we want. I'm going to ask Kobe Heisler's mom.
What's your name?
My name is Paul Johnson. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Not used to leading these things. Travis Jordan was my best friend that on November 9th, 2018, a wellness check call was made, originally to 311 so that medical help could show up. 311 immediately directed into 911 in the 4th precinct with not one person who lives in our neighborhood, sent 2 officers, both with around 11 months of training. 11 months out of the academy, and whatever it is that the police department does to these young folks, within 11 months, they had forgotten everything they learned in the academy. They had forgotten all policy and procedure. This is unacceptable. Travis Jordan should be alive if policy had been followed. So we're going to talk about Kobe Heisler now and all that's going on with Dante Wright. Amity Dimmick Heisler.
Hi everyone, my name is Amity Dimmick. I am the mother of Kobe Heisler. Legal name for you people, Kobe Dimmick Heisler, but he went by Kobe Heisler. He was murdered by the Brooklyn Center Police. Brandon Akers and Cody Turner shot multiple times, including in his head. He was in his own home. He was in front of his grandmother, who they pretty much accosted as soon as they murdered my son, trying to get her out of the house, and she was disabled and telling them that she can't walk, and they were essentially dragging her out of the house as she's screaming for her husband, Irv, help me, they're hurting me. My son was on the autism spectrum. He was 21 years old. He was beautiful. As we know, people that have mental health issues or are on the autism spectrum might have a bad day, you know, and they have certain things that trigger them, and, you know, they get upset about things that for you and I, you know, we'd be able to handle. But in this case, it was a messed up fast food order. And long story short, grandfather was concerned my son might hurt himself, and so 911 was called. It wasn't specifically said this is a wellness check, but, you know, they just come. My son instantly calmed down, so the grandfather called 911 back and said, we don't need you. They chose to come anyhow, showed up to the house all tactically, sneaking up to the house, like, you know, something greater than what is, you know. They show up, everything's fine, you know, the grandfather looks out the window, sees them out there, so he goes to greet them, says everything's fine, you know, you don't need to go in there. In fact, if you go in there, you'll probably make something happen. They pushed past the grandfather, went in anyhow, and, you know, he's like a 75-year-old dude, like he knows how to deal with the, you know, he doesn't deal with the police, he doesn't know he can actually tell them, I said, don't go into my house, you know? They went in, searched my son, and keep in mind, they're searching him even though he wasn't doing anything. Like, he wasn't in the middle of committing a crime. He was at his home. And they searched him. It was summer, you know, it was hot out. He just had a t-shirt and shorts. They, you know, checked his junk, checked everything. Sat him down in the room, in the middle of the living room on a wooden chair. Intimidated him for 12 minutes. You can hear him, you can hear one of the officers outside telling the grandfather that they got him on like felony charges of like a aggravated whatever, because he had weapons that he was gonna harm himself with, you know? And then after 12 minutes of complying, I mean, completely complying do you want to know how hard it is for a person on the autism spectrum to sit there for 12 minutes and comply for something that you shouldn't even, in a situation you shouldn't even be in? that was the thing that people ask me what surprised me the most. What surprised me the most is how perfect he was in that situation. At the 12-minute mark, he just wanted to be out of there. He put his hands down and just started crying. The next thing you know, he gets up and just runs. Now, what you all don't know, because you don't know the house, is where he was running. The grandma was here, running right here. You go like that, he's out of the house. Well, these police knew this house too, so they came and they intercepted, which my understanding is actually, once again, not protocol. After Dante was murdered on Sunday, I wake up on Monday morning to a post from Ben Crump, civil rights attorney Ben Crump, saying that the actions that, so the connection is Kimberly Potter, and yeah, I do call her Karen. So I call her Karen Potter, was the commanding officer on my son's scene. Now, I saw her in the video. I saw her instruction to the officers, which was to go to their cars, not talk to anybody, but she told them to turn their body cameras off.
That ain't right.
Which, I'm an accountant, I don't know these things, but people like Ben Crump and Sean King and the Legal Resource Coalition, they know more than I do. And so every day I go on Facebook or I turn on CNN, I'm finding out, which I always knew, that my son's case was not handled fairly. And one point I'd really like to make is every person that was the highest up in the departments that touched my son's case have now been deemed incapable or incompetent, have been fired, charged, or resigned. So Mike Freeman was taken off of George Floyd case due to sloppiness. My case, Kobe's case, Brian Quinones' case, Travis Jordan case, all of these cases were with Mike Freeman during that same time.
During his drinking time.
How dare anybody tell me that he was sloppy on George Floyd's case and not sloppy on our case, because they were there at the exact same time. And so that's number one. Now, number two, Kurt Boganey, city manager of Brooklyn Center, fired. He was the one who's in Brooklyn Center. He would be the one in charge of the police department. Kim Potter, charged. Officer Gannon, I don't know what the status is. I know he's trying to hand in his resignation because he knew the mayor was going to fire him. If anybody knows where that's at now. But my main point is every highest up person in the organizations that dealt with my son's case have been deemed incapable of doing their jobs, have been charged for doing their jobs wrong, have tried to resign to get out of being held accountable, or have been fired. That alone, everybody, makes it so my case gets to be opened again.
Yep.
That's right.
As far as Mike Freeman, in that year, but I go further because we know, I don't even know if I can, but my understanding, allegedly, he's had a drinking problem. That is public knowledge.
Yeah.
I demand that my son's case be reopened.
That's right.
I demand that we not focus only on the Minnesota Police or the MPD and the SPPD and think that that's just our only problem. Just like focusing on George Floyd or Dante Wright, thinking that's the only problem. That's what they want you to think. They want you all, you reporters, to only report on one or two names so that people think it's a limited problem.
It's an isolated event.
We stand here with these families in Minnesota alone in just 20 years since Communities United Against Police Brutality have been keeping a list. We're almost to the 500 person mark in only 20 years in Minneapolis, Minnesota. How many of those names do you guys know? Like, do you really think it's just George Floyd? Do you really? I call them the household names. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile. We know all those names. We love them. We love their families. They deserve it also, the justice. But we will not allow you guys to only report on those names anymore. stop it, because you're a part of the problem.
Yep.
Yep.
So I appreciate that you're out here listening to us, but will you actually report on this? You know, we stand here and do a lot of stuff, and you still pick and choose what you put out there. My son was the most beautiful, like literally, the most beautiful person in the world you could wish to meet. A lot of our loved ones were just the most kindest, most beautiful souls in the world. And I am sorry that none of you here will ever be able to meet my son and be able to enjoy the beauty that he brought into this world. We won't allow this to happen anymore. And I don't think people quite get it, but we will never stop. And justice for one of our loved ones isn't enough. And the little amount they gave for George Floyd, and I say little because you can't compare a life, but that I also consider them just trying to appease the masses and act like, oh, well, when something happens and you all notice, well, we do what's right. Like, let's not fall into their trap. Like, please, you know what's going on. And I'm telling you all, you guys are one of the biggest problems is by not reporting the correct stuff.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Amity. I'd like to remind the media, if you've seen it, Mercata Media had a good picture of it. They were throwing down independent media, ripping their press badges off. These are your folks, independent or not. They're out there defending the rights that you're using right now. Yep. And they were pushed to the ground. They have markings. Okay? Yeah, Mercata from the rooftop caught a flashbang grenade directly to the chest. There's Kenny Erickson was right there and captured it. He was being spotted. When he went down to pick up his media stuff, they shot right next to it on the ground. Tell me, as media people, how that makes you feel guarding the First Amendment. I mean, I know a lot of the major medias, they stand on the outside fringes, and I understand that. You have more expensive equipment. Your job is to get home and report that news. But you should stay on the fringes all night and watch as they're kettling these folks, as they're brutalizing them, as they're pushing them down. There's a reason why they surround that person that got pushed down with cops so you can't see them. There's reasons why they were telling the media the other night that they needed to disperse before they started beating on people. These are, and a federal judge, by the way, did ordered it, that they cannot do that to the media. And last night they continued to do it. They shoved them down, ripped press badges off, were taking pictures of IDs. I'm sorry, but that sounds to me like Nazi America, like what Hitler was doing, trying to shut people up. That is not America. This is not Myanmar here. Literally, we got so many nicknames for Minneapolis that are so degrading to the people that are here. Why? It's not us that's doing it. We're responding to the inaction of our government. So next I'd like to introduce Ashley Quinones, the wife of Brian Quinones. Her work brings her around the United States, working with a lot of the city, counties, and other justice fighters that are working for reform. And she's going to speak on the fact that Minneapolis, the center of all this, is unlike what Paul Gazelka is trying to shove down your throat, the furthest behind. And we are number 2 state, the number 2 worst state for black folks to live in Minnesota, or in the United States. How can that be true? How have we convinced ourselves of Minnesota nice when the numbers don't back it up? So, Ashley, would you please speak on that? Thank you very much.
Hi. It's been a while for me to be in Minnesota. I've been everywhere but here, intentionally, trying to learn about what's going on around the country, as I felt like it was just overwhelming for me here. Since my husband has been killed, he was killed September 7th of 2019 by 5 officers in Richfield, Minnesota, in front of me and our child, who is now 14 years old. Because they disrupt our lives and they consistently harass us, you got to get kind of imaginative and creative, finding new ways to combat the amount of control that they have to push you in a corner and to figure out basically how we can get the narrative of ours equal to theirs, which is extremely hard to do, and I'm still not successful at it, but I'm working at it. Around the country, Camden, New Jersey is a really great example of police reform that actually has worked. They completely took down all of their police departments in this county, rebuilt it from the ground up, targeting their toxic work culture in specific. The number one thing that they believe in is sanctity of life and the preservation of life. So you must perform life-saving measures no matter what. A suspect immediately becomes a victim if they are in injury and need first responding, which is that's what it's supposed to be around the country. However, it's not being done, and a lot of these police murders are also falling on the first responders for not responding how they should, due to what their job is telling them they should be doing. And so California has adopted great new policies, Colorado from Elijah McClain, New York City ending qualified immunity, and yep, Chicago, they have an amazing support system. They're getting a lot of people out of jail that are falsely incarcerated. They're able to, Gerald Reed was incarcerated for 30 years, I believe, and he just was released like a week ago. They're doing amazing work in Chicago, but my issue here in Minnesota is that this is the epicenter. This is where it really started. And for me to consistently go somewhere, and you guys to be reading on the news and seeing that there's work that's being accomplished, here we're being stonewalled. It's completely opposite. These elected officials, people in charge, do not want to work with us. These police departments are not feeling comfortable in calling out the racism and all of the toxicity in their workplace. And like even over this last week, a group called Land of 10,000 Cops, they were caught speaking about Dante Wright and George Floyd and others inappropriately. And it's a cop group. It's a group of only cops. Why are you more concerned with that exposure being for you to see? You guys are going to look like you guys are speaking wrong and disrespectful on the deceased that were killed by one of your comrades. Instead, you should be encouraged to call that out, and that should be what is unacceptable. You are so worried about covering up all the wrong that you are doing. Call it out. You are part of the problem. You have an option to choose the side of right, or you have the option to choose the side of wrong. And now it's time. Everybody knows you're up to no good, and it's not all of you, so start calling them out. So I just wanted to really get up here and say that I'm here for solidarity for all the families around the country. I don't care what terms anybody might be on, but the time is now. Everybody needs to do their part and get active, and that includes the people that are working in police departments and government entities that are sitting on their hands and not acting. So these bodies are all on you, and they ultimately fall on all of us as well. So let's do it together, please. Thank you.
I'd like to echo something Ashley said and also remind the people that the police union is very powerful. You know, it saves a lot of their jobs even after the wrongs they do. You know, it's hard to even get rid of the bad police. I ain't even gonna talk about the applesauce that is the police department. But I'd like to remind the police officers that union, when you're in your morning meetings with the sergeant or whatever, say the park police, and they're telling you, yep, we're gonna gear up. We've given these unhoused folks notification that they are being evicted from outside. So they decided not to go because there were no beds and there were no open places, and when they do go to shelters, packing up their tent and what little things they have has to go with them. So are they going to bring their entire house to whatever job they might be able to get? See, put those problems together, and what you have in the morning is these police saying, let's line up that dump truck, let's bear spray anybody who's trying to protect those unhoused, let's drag them out of their tents, and let's throw all that crap into that dumpster, what little they have. See, I just want to say, your union, if you were in that meeting and you said, sir, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Sir, I'm a human being. I don't want to throw what little possessions these unhoused folks have. I am 2 paychecks away from being unhoused, like almost all Americans.
That's facts.
Okay? You are not unsusceptible to the idea of homelessness. Your property values are not more important than those people having a tent to stay in. And those police have the choice to say, we don't want to do that sort of stuff. And if anybody attacked them within the force and tried to make them lose their jobs for saying, no, I don't want to attack people, that same union would protect them. Why don't they use that union power for good? Why can they not use their voices protected by that union power for good? They all want to say that they're good. Please start using your good voices, your good power, your good union skills. Start using that. Jacob Fry, also echoing on what Ashley said, he actually had to make a policy about police turning in bad police. Doesn't that speak volumes of the culture that had to a memo saying, hey guys, you really do need to turn in your fellow police officers when they do bad stuff. Come on, guys. Come on. So, I have a speech I prepared. When I think about my beloved city of Minneapolis, I am always reminded of my childhood. Grade school trips to see the Velveteen Rabbit and the other wonderful holiday exhibits at Dayton's department store. And later on in 7th and 8th grade, taking that number 18 downtown to the city center, feeling so grown up. And I bought this pair of shoes, Reeboks, that I had saved up my own paper route money to buy. We were shopping at Sam Goody, buying overpriced CDs and sipping on an Orange Julius. Like a first love, I will always view our city with great reverence and adoration. It is because of this love of the city of Minneapolis and its residents that as we have incurred such great traumas in recent days, months, and years, Philando Castile, Jamar Clark, my best friend Travis Jordan on my own front lawn, George Floyd, and now Dante Wright, that I have hurt with you. I have grieved with you, and I have been in these streets as we have chanted the names of stolen lives and helped apply the necessary pressure towards change. Yet, it hasn't been enough. Our leadership has failed us to stand by the people who have cried out for years or to protect those that are most vulnerable. As another election approaches, more career politicians look to jump on the social justice bandwagon, attempting to build their resumes on the blood of our loved ones lost. I can no longer march, waiting, or even expecting the current mayor to do his job. We are no longer asking. We are coming to make the changes. And now, with the families of the victims of police violence within Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the state of Minnesota at large, I will be delivering Mayor Jacob Fry his notice of eviction. We can no longer allow politicians to treat Minneapolis like a political stepping stone, but rather treating it like the destination city it is. People have used the North Star as a guiding light for centuries. And right now, the world is watching us, the North Star City, looking for direction, and yet we appear to be a rudderless ship, allowing city after city around America to lead the way in police reform. This is unacceptable. We have ignored our schools, teachers, and the very future of our city, its students. We have stolen their tomorrow for the false notion of safety today, and we can do this no more. We absolutely must invest in ourselves. We can decide this November whether to be led quietly back towards the status quo or to boldly walk together into a future that is inclusive to all, where our humanity is not monetized, but rather cared for, so that when one ascends, we all will ascend. We must remain informed, engaged, focused, and community-driven. Together we can reimagine Minneapolis into a place that our children will grow to have the same reverence and appreciation that I have for Minneapolis, the greatest city that I have and forever will call home. Paul Irvin Johnson, the choice from the people and the clear choice for the people to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. I'm going to have one more person speak, and then we'll take questions from media and the community, as that is as important, if not more important, on this what's going to be a long trek towards that mayor's seat. But we got the power of the people, right? One of the people who last year was maimed by one of those projectiles, Soren Stevenson.
Last summer, in the George Floyd uprising, I was shot on the on-ramp to 35 South with a rubber bullet in my face. There was a peaceful protest. I lost my left eye, my sense of smell, broke most of the bones in my head. And a little thing that, might not matter to most, but I still haven't heard from anybody in the city. Nobody in the city's contacted me, They took a lot from me, and I haven't heard a thing.
That ain't right. That ain't right.
We need Paul, because Paul is ingrained in this city. He doesn't feel entitled to the mayorship. He's going to get that mayorship because he works for it, because he loves this city, not because he's trying to step to be senator, step to be governor. He wants Minneapolis. He wants Minneapolis to be good. He wants the people of Minneapolis to flourish.
Right.
And that's just not what we're seeing from our current leadership, and it's unfortunate. If we wouldn't be here if our current leadership had stepped up for Minneapolis. But that's not what they've done. So we have to be here. And so this November, you guys all need to come out and you need to vote for Paul.
When we do this, we are always keeping these families focused. So I'm going to just have Miss Marilyn come on up. She's going to speak briefly on her son, because we continue to tell these stories to remain focused, to remain in the light. Nobody would know Travis Jordan's name if not for Taryn Vang and Tashira Galloway. That woman is a saint, and she has brought us together, probably the largest family coalition, I would say, in the United States. And we got unity. And we've brought unity to this movement here in Minnesota, who has got our back. Yep. Who's got our back?
We got your back.
Who's got our back?
We got your back.
You see that? I could imagine a lot of people. This got put out in very short notice, so I do appreciate everybody who has summed up the energy to come. Some of the families couldn't make it, they told me, This week has been very hard. We dredge up these things. We are never allowed to even get a Band-Aid on before the scab is removed. Okay? We give a piece of ourselves every time we tell their story. And we do it so often, and then we have to take a break. We have to self-care. We have to take care of our families who are scared for us out there being persecuted by some, targeted by others. But we stand together. And Miss Marilyn Hill, speak on your son Demetrius.
Well, welcome, everyone. You know, I come here in solidarity to speak on behalf of families supporting Family Against Police Violence, and also Satara Garraway is a founder of Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence. She is real one powerful woman. We have to say her name.
That's right.
Say her name. Satara. Yes, she has been out here fighting hard to get our case open, demanding justice for our family. But as every moment in our life, we stand strong in unity, trying to open up these cases and these governors and legislature. I'm really amazed by Paul trying to go for mayor. I'm 100% with him, fighting for mayor, because we need somebody to step in and make change. You know, the government is in the system right now is not doing a damn thing for nobody. All they doing is running off with their mouth, and you don't see no action. My son Demetrius, 23 or 24 years ago, was shot, gunned down, and he was shot in the back. Innocent boy, living in an apartment building with my mother and father. Before we moved there, someone had set my apartment on fire, caused me to go into a shelter. My son had told me when I was packing my clothes and trying to get the Salvation Army to help me move, he said, "Mom, the police is trying to kill me." That's what they do. They start dealing with police harassments. And I couldn't understand at that time because I had just had a child, a young one, and he wasn't quite a year old. And being that my son was not even 18 years old, knowing we had to relocate, he started school at another location. For him to be living in my mother's apartment building, to be accused of something that he wasn't involved in. That incident that occurred that night, he was sleeping earlier that day. Later on that evening, he started making music. He signed a contract. Believe this. He just signed a contract for music. How can he be involved in an aggravated robbery and they never put his picture out there like that? But they accused him for robbing somebody when he had money. My son was a lovable kid. He looked out for people. My heart, I have a heart that cares. I'm a type of person, I'll give you the shirt off my back. If you need something to eat, I will give you something to eat. If you needed some change to do something with, I will help you out. This is how my son was. He had a heart of gold. And for that police officer, Victor, to set him up, knowing he was in plain clothes. Now, if you got a phone call saying somebody robbed you, and in the report it's saying all the person that was involved was all associate friends, then he couldn't been involved in no robbery, because that's how the information comes out to be. I've been fighting for justice for 23 years. Because when I sat and decided to open up the report and I went back to the scene, it does not read right. But you know what? Today, with George Floyd, Dante Wright, these murders that's coming out to the light, these officers that's shooting people, now they thinking they getting away from it. People are starting to step out and talk. I have a vid coming up on April 28th, right in the area where my son was gunned down. When the officer shot him, he used a different type of a gun. He shot him in his back and went back into his chest. They left him in the hallway and let him die. Instead of staying there getting the paramedics, they waited 20 minutes to step out the scene to figure out what kind of story they could come up with. They intimidated the witnesses. They went 4 years of intimidating and keeping us secret. I am not secret no more. My voice is being heard. I need every officer that was involved in the writing report. I also want to get that officer that's head of records, Joshua Lego. He started off in working for the police department. He was a rookie. He only was working 6 months in the force out there in the field. He wrote the report. He intimidated the witnesses. And I have talked to the witnesses. And they said they didn't say that. They didn't sign no written statement. So the information is a lie. The description is a lie. Everything that's in that report. Why would you tell me that my son's in the hospital, that they caught the person who shot my son was black? And when I come to find out, when my son got killed, after years later, they used my son's picture on the TV, showing this officer that got a medal, honorable medal for shooting my son. See, God knows. That's why I am 62 years old and I'm still standing on strong.
Boots on the ground.
Trying to get my justice. You know? Yes. I need justice. Even though Victor, when God says eye for eye, I'm sorry for him because, I had to let go. I had to learn. I had to learn to have mercy and surrender. But see, that officer, he became a drunken officer that never went back into a uniform after that. And the thing about it, he got shot in his back. But you know what I'm fighting for? He don't deserve a medal. How can you give a person a medal for shooting an 18-year-old boy that really he shot the wrong person? That's why he ended up an alcoholic, because his conscience was bothering him. And that's what I'm fighting for, all these women that's the police and killed. Justice need to be served.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
April 28th, we're gonna be going right over at 1335 Westminster.
1335 Westminster. What time?
At 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
28th of April.
28th of April. Justice for Demetrius.
Justice
That's
for
right.
Demetrius. I'm gonna hold this event because my son's last word, when that officer shot him, he laid on the hallway, and he didn't understand why he got shot. And the last word was why. And that's a hurting feeling.
Justice for Demetrius Hill.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's hard to understand how these stories can come out like Fu Lee and that fake gun that came out of the evidence locker. Joshua Lego had not only been involved in the murder of Demetrius Hill, but also of Justin Tigan. There's cops related to these murders. If we're gonna look for specific bad apples, I'd start with their record of how many people they'd killed. So let's open it up to community questions, press questions, anything. Well, platform mostly, we need to, the government asks us, and rightly so, to believe in the science of masks. We should. They work. Everybody should be masked up. You can see, even at protests, we be handing them out. People got jugs of hand sanitizer. We do everything we can. Yet all the science towards policing, incarceration, and education, all of the science points towards educate our kids, give them opportunity, give them the idea of future, the idea of tomorrow. And they'll start making decisions that aren't based on today. Okay? Minneapolis, Adriana Sorillo just got elected, and I watched on Facebook her reaction to the education budget that just came out, and it was an absolute joke. We are ignoring our schools, taking away extra activities, taking away the arts programs, taking away everything, increasing class sizes. We have been defunding our educational system and watching crime rise. We know that if we educate our people, crime goes down. If we educate our police force, we know that 4-year degrees decrease the level of bias in people. We know that we can make improvements in this city. Our city right now, because of this pandemic, we don't know how many empty offices, floors, hotel rooms since we had the Super Bowl are empty right now. There's going to be a reimagining of Minneapolis. And I don't necessarily have the exact idea of what that means. What that means is that we need to come together as a community and decide what we want our city to represent. What we want our city to be all about, you know? Because right now, our citizens are clashing with our government. And what our government keeps doing is finger pointing amongst themselves. See, now the mayor only has certain amounts of power, but even within those powers, he's not using them. City council has a certain amount of powers, but they think that they can just bicker amongst themselves and then point back to the mayor. This is not how things work. You don't get to just bicker amongst yourselves while the community suffers. I'm running independently because I don't believe that the leader or the decision maker after any sort of legislative process should have any partisanship. That was taken care of in and amongst the group of people that push that forward to the mayor or forward to the governor. That governor shouldn't be making any decision based on Republican, Democrat, or anything else. He should be making that decision based on the community, based on the city's wants, based on the residents here. Okay? And if your feet are in Minneapolis, you are a resident of Minneapolis. Because remember, we are all on this stolen land. So appreciate that. Policy. You know, the word defund is a harsh word to a lot of people. We do need security in our city, but we can reimagine what that's like. We can have further education, but these reforms, you can't reform something that's formed out of badness. You have to replace it. Because you just look at the word, reform. You're just reforming something that's already there. We can't have what's already there. And we need to come up with a way of systematically improving it, whether that be precinct by precinct, ward by ward. There's a way to go about this. Is it immediate? No. Will it take a little bit of time? Yes. But as we take these steps and measures, increasing education, figuring out how to educate and take what's on police plates right now that they are not trained for off. So when we say defund, it's not like we want to take their pension. We don't want to take their wages. We want to take the problems that they're having away from them. They should not be doing mental health calls. Mental health calls are a scalpel decision, and we're throwing hammers at them. Okay? So in order for us to accomplish that, yes, we need a piece of that police budget because we're not having them do that anymore. Do you understand? That is what defund means. You could call it reallocation. You could call it whatever you want. Rebudgeting, redistribution. But the fact is that if there's a chunk of money going towards something that's trying to accomplish too much, when we take some of that away, we take some of the money away and we put it towards what it should be. Okay?
This what they hide behind. They hide behind
Right.
immunity so they can do all the wrong and the families can't sue. They can't get press charges on. You know what I'm saying? What about that? Like, is you going to target that?
Currently, right now, that's in our state legislature. And Paul Gazelka yesterday on NPR talked about what great police reform they passed last year. But this is that police reform where they're like, don't choke people to death. Turn in the bad cops. You know, that's their police reform. No, we have 9 solid bills that are being held up right now in committees run by Warren Limmer, who is a old retiring legislator who is sticking these in his committee once again, where politicians, one politician right now, one is deciding to hold up legislature that will affect our entire state. How is that even right? I mean, I get the process of lawmaking, but when it comes down to it, he should not be holding up this legislature. We as the people are demanding it to be passed. So those 9 bills, I should have brought my list, but ending qualified immunity, increasing the statute of limitation. Travis Jordan's case is running up this November. They're still withholding information. We just got back some of his personal possessions, which is reported, and this is completely allegations. I'm not going to say they do it, but they have a history of proving that it could be done, but that the 4th precinct likes to keep trophies of the people that they kill. That's a widespread allegation.
That's all the precincts. We're all missing evidence.
They like to hold on to the evidence. The BCA, their investigations somehow seem to last like 2 years, 9 months. The Lando Castillo Omnibus, the Hardell-Sherrill Act, Beltrami Prison, no-knock warrant bill. Sir, we got all them bills that are going to make community accountability bill. If you don't know, CPAC, at all the events, they're getting signatures. If you're a resident of Minneapolis, make sure you sign that. It is also on change.org, right? Show it.
Say what CPAC means in case people...
Community control of the police, Civilian Police Accountability Commission. We need to stop having the BCA police investigating police. You know, they go into a quiet room and the BCA is supposed to be investigating them, but oftentimes Michelle Gross has heard these. When they start to say something that might admit fault, the BCA will change the line of questioning in order for them to not. These are things that, you know, obviously need to end in order for all police to be able to do their job well, to be able to not be demonized by people, to be able to follow policy procedure and not kill people. If police don't want to have a bad name, let's take the things that they're doing wrong off their plate and allow the few things that they should be doing, like monitoring the safety of our streets against, you know, the outside influences that we know last year were coming in, burning our food sources, burning our pharmacies, burning our banks. You know, the north side barely has any to begin with, and we had community patrol at the North Market. People showing up every once in a while asking where the special water was, and they had to be chased away. That is odd to me. I don't know if it's odd to you. Why is there not a National Guard person at every grocery store at night? They could be used here on a humanitarian basis. We have unhoused. We could be using the National Guard for good purposes. If you talk to these folks, sometimes they have broken down crying, saying they do not want to be here. And when we say we don't want you here, it's not that we are against you as a soldier. We love you as a soldier. We thank you for your soldier. We thank you for being a part of America. You are a true patriot, and you are being asked to do something that is downright illegal or should be and just wrong. And these families, as Tashira Galloway, we stand in what is right, and what is wrong, and we will stand on the side of right no matter what. And we will call it out. We will be anti-racist. We will be everything that it takes, boots on the ground, everywhere we go. We will feed our own community if you don't want to. We will clothe them, as we did when we did Locks of Love, and then they had to come and cut them down 3 times. It doesn't get more peaceful than that. They just don't like the reminder of how many people have been murdered. And then they take the National Guard and they make the National Guard protect the police as they push people off public property into traffic, demand that they get rid of the clothing drive where we were clothing the cold during that cold snap. Mayor Fry couldn't take 5 minutes to come down and talk to Kaya Hurt as she sat there for 40 hours chained to a fence with single-digit degree nights. What kind of community person is that? How do you tell us that you care about this city and you have not come? You have not showed up, council people. I'm calling you all out. Governor Walz, I'll show the picture of us hugging. You lied to us that day.
Amen.
We were the first families in your house during the pandemic. The first ones you invited with false promises and smiles, and now it feels like you've stabbed us in the back.
Amen. Liar.
You can be using your pulpit to get this legislation passed, but you don't even put the names of the people that are preventing it. Put them out there. Put them on blast. They're supposed to be doing their job to get you the bills that you promised us you are ready to sign. If you don't do something about it and stop attacking the protesters, stand up, come down there, stand with us for 6 hours and watch. Be there incognito. Watch as the police intimidate us. Watch as they start things. Stop watching the news and get your down there.
Amen.
I promised my mom I wouldn't swear. Any other questions? Thank you. Yeah.
As you mentioned, Jacob Frey, the current mayor, shouldn't even call him that, and Lisa Bender, the entire city council. There are so many aspects of the city that need reform, or even damage beyond reform. And there's so many aspects where people in this community are clashing with each other just based on the lack of leadership from the people above. So I just kind of want to ask you, there are certain things, even right now during this pandemic, that are not being, well, you did mention it, like the school to prison pipeline. Our kids are being murdered because they're not being educated in school. Dr. Wright was a Minneapolis public school student, which I attend to, and they haven't done anything during this pandemic to make sure that our black and brown kids are doing okay. Yeah, they've done food drives. Yeah, they've done all of this. But that school to prison pipeline is what's getting our kids murdered by police.
Yes, it is.
As to how the youth, while we're out here witnessing all of these tragic situations, and we're out here on the front lines, are going to be protected by the community that swears they will because they love us so much, but have time and time again got us maced by the police, beat by the police, arrested by the police.
Yeah.
Say that.
Say that. I mean, so the first part of your question, the multiple issues that Minneapolis is going through, pandemic, racial pandemic, there is some division, and I want to mention tomorrow there's what is it called? The Black and Asian Solidarity March. That's going to be at George Floyd Square. See, 2 o'clock, okay? We're bringing people together. Is that the CPAC? Okay, anybody from Minneapolis can sign that here for the CPAC. We're getting that going. You know, there are issues in Minneapolis that can be solved, like, all together. You know, when we look at solving the unhoused project, I see job opportunity. We're going to need more permanent housing, okay? We have nonprofit organizations that are ready and willing to take up property and hold them for the homeless. Not put them in the hands of the city who get to decide when they're going to give and go, right? And that opportunity leads into more social work care, more health care, feeding. See, these are job opportunities that the city now has in order to solve a problem. Now we're solving multiple problems. The education problem, it has to start with funding. We have got to get schools opened, not closed. We have to get smaller school sizes so that y'all kids can be paid attention to. You are geniuses. You are the kings and queens of our future, okay? I'm going to be old someday, and y'all are going to be taking care of me. And if we don't educate you properly, if we're just locking you up, all your goodness, all your smarts, all your beauty, all your art goes in with you. We have got to stop that. We have got to promote it within the schools, bring back after-school programs so that kids don't have to go home and only partner with their friends who might not have the best ideas of what they should be doing that afternoon. We need to entice those kids into college education. We know that gun buyback programs haven't ever worked really well. But what about a gun for education program? What if we started having the kids hand in guns and we gave them a quarter of college, books paid for, and we gave them the idea that we believe in you. We believe that you are the leaders of our nation. We think that you need to be making decisions based on not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but when you're 30, when you're 25. You're going to be thinking about how to build generational wealth, how to buy property. We're going to teach you the appropriate things to grow up and to be just like the Minneapolis that we should be, right? Y'all want to be a part of that? Because that's what I want you to be. I want the education system to stop the pipeline to incarceration and to start the pipeline into entrepreneurship, to start the pipeline into government running. We need normal people doing this because it seems like the minute you get elected, you forget where you came from.
Amen.
You forget what it's like to go from a dual family income of like $70,000, $80,000 maybe, that's probably, to $40,000 and making it work.
That's just like Warren Limmer. He gave out what, $2 to $3 million to the school districts. You know, after the pandemic came down. You know, we need to check into actually where did that money go to. You know, just like the pipeline. And then she's speaking on, you know, these people out here and just putting their kids on their life on danger. You know, because they're killing them younger.
How was y'all's wireless situation during this school year?
Teacher gonna see me, but not very good. Not very good.
Okay.
You're not being paid attention to. You don't show up to class, they send you to court during a pandemic.
Yep.
You're truancy, John. We're gonna take you to court for truancy.
Are y'all hearing
You're
this?
online. Crazy. I'm not even in the school building.
Right.
So how am I doing truancy if I'm in my own room?
Right.
There's just so many factors. And also, I just like how you called out the performance activism because I promised Jacob Frey went outside one time, then booed him, he never came outside again. That's supposed to be his city.
That's right.
Yeah, he's watching. He's watching Fox 9, who they hate, who hate us, who false report what we're doing every day.
Amen.
Me and Imani have been out here every day, and they will tell us that we need to go back inside, go to school, get a job. Sorry, I'm 16. I have a job. I go to school, and yet they're still trying.
Amen.
Y'all hearing that? This is that community that we need to protect. This is that community that I will protect.
This is the youth you encourage.
That's
and
right.
Pipeline them to government.
Yeah. This is what they need to see. They need to be encouraged. They need to know. This young lady, I mean, 2 years she could be standing here. No, how old you gotta be, man? You know? We need to prepare our government and our people in a way to stop idolizing politicians. They are not above us. They are us, and they're supposed to represent us. They're supposed to remember what it was like when they were kids and they had those educational opportunities. They still had after-school programs. Imagine all that being taken away. And yeah, we live in a society with a lot more single parents who have to work 1 or 2 jobs. So now you got kids who can't stay after school for sports or like chess club, or now we got videos, and it could be music club, making music, anything like that, where kids get involved and are appreciated for their young minds. Any other questions? Young lady, did I satisfy your question? She's busy. Did I satisfy your question? Okay. Any other questions? Media?
You answered my question.
Okay.
I was going to put Waltz on blast.
Why don't you just put President Biden on blast?
Why?
No, he needs to be recognized too.
Yeah. We in this state, we vote blue because Minneapolis is blue. And the rural parts vote red. All you got to do is travel 30 minutes out the city to see Trump signs still hanging. And in the rural parts, they don't believe that they need police reform. So when state legislators are from those parts, they're speaking on behalf of their life experience. Okay? They're speaking on behalf of what they've lived. As a politician, that is not your job. Your job is to listen to the life experiences of your people and then make the best decision based on that. So in rural, you don't understand that half of those police murders are happening in rural Minnesota. Okay? And St. Paul actually is worse than Minneapolis concerning the murder of people by the police at the hands of the police. This is something that is fixable, but it takes dedication. It takes clear goals and a path to get there, an unwavering path. We can't have politicians who come out and say, defund the police. 3 seconds later, they got a little pressure put on them by their paying checkbook constituents, and they're like, well, what we really mean is we're going to pat them on the back and tell them not to choke people. Yep, all right. Look what we did. Yeah.
They called 100 departments from around the country, and that's what they did. They didn't need guns, they just got more from all over the place.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else?
So you're running independent, right?
Yeah.
So tell us why you're running independent.
I touched on that a little.
About those other folks that you don't trust enough to run with.
Well, I touched on that a little bit. I don't believe in the top person after the legislative process. I don't believe in them having affiliations with political parties. You should not have a political party being a part of your decision making. It should be solely on what that all happened in the legislature. That happened the bipartisanship, tripartisanship, whatever, however many, the legislative branch, the city council, that's what that's there for. That's where they can express their differing viewpoints. When it gets to the desk of the mayor, desk of the governor, desk of the president, I really believe that all of that should not be. Our president should not have a party. We should be picking the president who can run our country. And every time we get these two-party systems, we're shoved a president down our throat where it feels like we're continually choosing the best of the worst. And we don't understand how that person got there in the first place. And it's usually because of these partisan lines and their power. So I'm running independently because I'm not going to have any company, any political affiliation. I will not be pushed, swayed, or any other thing by those things. I am here to bring a voice to the people, period. All right.
Good job, Paul.
Paul Johnson for mayor. Hey, hey, hey.
Hang on, Paul.
No, don't go back to Virginia.
Wait, can you take one for?
Hold her up, Paul.
You don't have to go home, but you can't